Back, and thank you for joining us for a KCRA 3 special, Breaking Free from Fentanyl. Joining us today is Placer County District Attorney Morgan Guyer and Dr. Christine Bell from the Core Clinic you saw in our story. So I want to start with you. How has the prosecution of fentanyl-related cases changed?
It's changed in that before, cases like this were treated as overdose scenes. So law enforcement's role would really be sort of a standby as medical personnel treated the person that experienced these symptoms. Now they're being treated as crime scenes. Now there is a collection of evidence and the gathering of forensic evidence to try and support at least an investigation and if not a criminal case.
So Dr. Bell, we've talked about how this has changed your treatment of your clients. How has it changed over the past few years and even more recently?
So we have, a few tools in our toolbox, some medications that we've been using for quite some time, and they worked great for the oxy, the pill mill epidemic. They worked great for the heroin epidemic, and then we had the fentanyl epidemic come along, and so it changed a lot about, we're trying to use the same tools the same way, and it wasn't working, so we had to rethink everything. We had to go back kind of from the beginning and learn to respond and not react and kind of go patient to patient and individualize our care better. We had to use different starting doses. We had to sometimes slow that way down, sometimes speed that way up. And so that was a really big, a huge learning curve that I think made us better as a clinic, but it was very difficult because our goal is to engage and retain patients so we can help them do better, get back to their lives, get back to their jobs, or get back to their families. And we can't do that if we kept losing them, and we were losing them a lot in the beginning because we weren't able to use our medications the same way. So we had to go back and learn how to do that. We had to learn how to talk to each patient because patients would come in and say, I'm using 2 grams of fentanyl, and we'd give our starting dose, and that would be too much, for example. And then sometimes we'd give the same starting dose as someone who would say, I'm using 2 grams of fentanyl, and it'd be clearly not enough. And that had to do with the fact that nobody's regulating the fentanyl that's out there. So we had to talk to each individual patient and say, what are you doing? Come back tomorrow. How are you today? And so we did that a lot, and I honestly think it made us better. It just was costs, lives were at risk for that. There was a lot of death in the learning curve.
Yeah. So DA Guyer, we know that your county is leading the way in prosecuting these cases. How is this an issue of focus for you, and why is it so important?
Our community, we were hit by the fentanyl epidemic. Just like every community, we saw young people in particular dying senselessly and needlessly, and we knew we had to get active quickly. We began an aggressive outreach campaign. We partnered with our bereaved and grieving parents to spread the message of the dangers, and we increased our prosecution and enforcement efforts to hold those who sell this poison accountable.
Dr. Bell, and I'll ask you, DA Guyer, this is kind of our last question. Quickly, how would you say that fentanyl related cases are improving, and do you think it's improving?
Oh yeah, we've seen a huge decrease in death, and it's because of the collaboration like he was talking about. Partly is we have parents out there spreading the word who've lost children. We have Narcan everywhere in colleges and schools and nursing. Everyone knows how to use Narcan now. Fentanyl test strips have helped because there are people who don't want fentanyl and they're getting poisoned. These families he spoke of. So now they can test to see if it's in their drug. So we've just this huge collaboration. Everyone's coming together, teaching about fentanyl, learning about fentanyl, knowing and understanding the dangers of fentanyl, and I think that has helped so much decrease death, the unnecessary death.
Dr. Bell, thank you, and DA Guyer, do you think it's getting better?
I do, and I think all of these efforts combined, people are talking about it. We've gone in just a couple of years from people not knowing what fentanyl was to now having conversations around the dinner table with their children. Children now are educating parents and grandparents about what fentanyl is because of what they learn in schools and in the messaging that we've done. And I honestly think on the criminal enforcement end, dealers are talking about it. The legal theory by which we're holding people responsible for the deaths of others is catching on, and people are talking. So I think from all of these efforts, from a 360-degree perspective, it's improving, but it's not over yet.
So what messages do you have for the community out there in terms of the dangers of fentanyl?
The danger, it's in everything. It's very easy to add to you know, anything that you're taking, that you're buying on the street, there's a pretty good chance that there's fentanyl in it. That's important to know. And I think that the patients who are seeking fentanyl are definitely more wise to, you know, how much they can and cannot handle. But having Narcan on, everyone should have Narcan. Every single person should have Narcan in their car, on their person. We should, I mean, that's kind of, and if you are someone who's out buying medication, you should have a fentanyl test strip. People need to know how to use those.
In terms of the cases that you're seeing, do you think that dealers and people who are out there selling the drug are seeing that there are some very real consequences to this? And do you think that's making an impact on what's being sold on the street?
I most definitely think it's making an impact. We have, anecdotally, we hear from dealers who have been caught who talk about the consequences that they might get in certain areas of the state, in certain counties. And I think as more and more counties become more aggressive, and I always say we're not going to arrest and prosecute our way out of it, but it is one critical component to tackling this crisis, along with our outreach, our education, our treatment. But I think that enforcement end is catching on. I think people are talking about it, and I think ultimately it will make a difference.
And I want to ask you both this question. Dr. Bell, I'll start with you. Other than fentanyl, are you seeing a trend with any other drug that people are using when they're coming into your clinic?
So there, xylazine or tranq, what everyone knows about or has been talked about, tranq, that is something that's added to fentanyl. Usually people aren't seeking tranq, people aren't seeking xylazine. We have heard of carfentanil showing up here and there. Isotonizine, it's another opiate synthetic that potentially could show up more, but it's just fentanyl. I mean, fentanyl is really still the guy. And polysubstance use is bigger now. I feel like that's our fourth wave that's happening. It's, you know, people are combining like cocaine with fentanyl, and so I think we're seeing a lot more of that than we have. I still rarely see heroin on drug screens, so I mean, mostly we see fentanyl. It's really kind of still sticking around. And
DA Geyer, what are you seeing out there?
It is predominantly fentanyl, where we used to have just sort of single drugs. We would just see a bust with methamphetamine. Now we see fentanyl almost everywhere, if not in larger proportions than we do with other drugs. I think the doctor is right. This is the nature of the narcotics game. There will always be variations. We haven't seen a lot of those variations as much as they've seen maybe on the East Coast. But it's everywhere, and the mixture in other drugs is especially concerning, especially to those who are just trying to recreationally take some drugs or to take what they think might be something else to solve a problem or feel better. The prevalence of fentanyl is frightening, and its lethality poses an extra big threat.
Yeah, still a risk out there.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you both for joining us. And again, we want to thank you for joining us here for our KCRA 3 Project Community Special, Breaking Free from Fentanyl. We have more stories and resources posted on our website and our KCRA 3 app.